Welcome, everybody. My name is Stacy Goodrich. I'm your host of The Mental Edge. This podcast is all about inside out mentality. Most of us are coached from the outside in. We are told what to do and then we do it. But this this work is really about showing how people have managed to figure out how to be empowered and come from the inside out to connect the dots for themselves to maximize their opportunities. I'm so proud of the people that I get to work with every day, and today is no exception. I'm really excited to bring on Madison. Hey, Madison, tell us a little bit about you. Welcome to the podcast, and tell us a little bit about you and how we met.
So my name is Madison, and I play Division II volleyball at Henderson State University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. And me and Stacy have been talking now for almost 4 or 5 years, and just the time that I've been talking to her, it's completely changed my entire outlook on life, and especially playing volleyball. And she's been such a good help for me, just mentally getting through my struggles that I had my freshman year. Which, when we started talking, I was about 14, 15 years old, and I was really struggling with like staying true to who I was, being mentally strong, because I was on the verge of completely quitting because of a coach, and it was completely just dragging me down mentally, and I was in a really dark place. And then Stacy getting a hold of her really just opened up my mind to everything that I am now, and without her I honestly wouldn't be playing volleyball.
Well, thank you, Madison. Um, I'm so grateful for that because, um, you never know where this work is going to take any of us. And because of that, today I'm going to do something a little different with you. I hope you're okay with it. But what I did before we got on the call, and I hope you can hear me. Can you still hear me? Okay.
I can.
Um, what I did before I got on the call was I wrote down 5 things that I learned from you.
Okay.
Okay. And so I want to share those things and then get your feedback on them. And this is brand new, but I'm so excited because it was so fun to do that. It was so fun to think about our time together. And that's why I have this podcast, because I want people to get to know you guys, because I'm so excited to share, everybody's story, and everybody's so different. But how you have done this and what you have done with this work and how you've created your life because of inside out mentality has been such a delight for me to see. And I know your parents,
Yeah.
because if most I got to work, I get to work with her parents as well. And they have taught me so much about how they have worked with you and how that's been a good thing and not a good thing and everything in between. Right.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that I want to point out that I have learned from Madison is at an early age, Madison, you learned to work with parents with extremely high expectations of you,
Yeah.
not just in volleyball, but in everything. You are an only child,
Yes.
and you tell me a little bit about that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, like being an only child, like people are like, "Oh, well, you have all of this stuff handed to you, like you get everything you want." And it's like, no, like my parents taught me at an early age I have to work for everything that I want, and I have to be like self-sufficient, because obviously going to college, like you're on your own. And so at an early age they taught me how to like think on my own, do stuff on my own, and that like pushed me to be better for myself and for them, because I was the center of attention all the time. So it's like if I made a mistake, it was heightened, rather than if I had a sibling, it's like, no, they made that mistake, not me.
Exactly. So and I don't think it would be, um, I don't think your dad would be disagreeing with me when I say when I met him, I was like, oh my goodness, the things that he says to you can be quite um, hard. He has such high expectations of himself that he mirrors that onto you all the time.
Yeah.
And obviously, it, when you're 14, Was there any type of situation that was difficult for you about that? Or can you just share with people maybe something that wasn't easy for you, but you figured it out?
Probably when I was going through like my roughest patch with volleyball, like I was just super like unconfident in myself and like everything he was saying, like you need to do better, like I know you can do this and you're not showing it. And then that really hit me and then it kept on like it was like a weight just pushing me down and down and like all my negative thoughts and all of his in feed, it was just pushing me down and down. And then it was just really hard to get out of that because it's like, well, I'm not doing enough for him and I'm not doing enough for me. So it just kept on piling up.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I learned from you how you really I feel like back then, and you can tell me if this isn't accurate, I feel like back then you had to really push down a lot of things inside of you. And you had to almost become a part of you that could manage that and still survive and thrive and become more of who you are. And so I really admire you for how you did that, because parents only see their children from their potential. And that isn't always easy, but some people don't figure it out and they can't manage it, and it makes them feel inadequate. And you really leveled up yourself to figure that out. And that's, we all have choice with how we, and that brings me to probably the second thing that you taught me, Madison. And being mentally strong can be difficult, and working on being mentally strong can be difficult, because what I saw in you was all of the things that you had to shed to allow yourself to be more of who you are in a mentally strong, physically strong way. You really went through a lot of transformation to kind of get rid of the things that no longer served you and weren't congruent with you being mentally strong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So can you just describe that for you, like that kind of transformation or evolution for you, about really a lot, kind of how did you do that? Like, how did you let go of the things that you needed to, that were serving you in a positive way, even though they're not always positive things? But how did you do that for you? Can you maybe describe an experience or a situation for you where that was what you did?
Yeah, so for me, like getting out of the rough patch and turning into like positive stuff, like everything that I was like shoving down deep for years with my like just my parents in life, like after having conversations with you, it really opened my eyes of like I'm really like disconnected from who I am and like from my parents because it was like everything I was shoving down was pushing me away from my parents. And so
Mm.
over time it was like me just shedding the layers of just everything in my life just to them and like really opening up to them and like opening up to myself. And it was New Year's, my sophomore year of high school. My dad sat me down, or we all sat down on the couch, and we just talked about everything for like 2 hours. And it was a lot of crying, and it was a lot of like, this is who I am, and like, this is what I've been holding on to. And it was just, I wouldn't have ever done that like the year before. I would have just sat there and just been like, well, I don't need to talk about anything. Like, there's nothing to talk about. But then really just opening up to them just really made me closer. And then now, like today, I mean, I call my parents like 4 or 5 times a day. Like we talk all the time. We've never been this close in my life. And it really just helped me relax, especially talking to them and hearing their like life experiences just really opened my eyes of like, wow, like I've been through similar things, but here's how I handled it rather than how y'all handled it. And like really just trying to describe like how different it was for me compared to them.
That is such a good point. When I was thinking about um, working, doing this and putting you on the podcast, what I noticed with your parents when they worked with me is they recognized how they saw you from your potential always, no matter what. But they also, after working with your dad, I recognized after that that he also saw how you could be better as a person without his ideas of that at the forefront. Like he literally kind of opened up his vision of you, not just from his perspective, but from you. But it was hard, Madison. It was like, he's like, she really needs to, she doesn't have any friends, kind of thing. And she needs to be nice to people. And right? It was like this. And I was like, okay, I'll work on, like because, and obviously I say it with all the obvious respect for your dad, but he definitely has a way of requiring himself, but you to be your best. And that was a turning point for me too with you to really, I was grateful for him to be able to see really who you were and your potential from not just his mirror and not just from what he expected, but really more of you. Does that make sense to you?
It's like his wants for me turned into like, well, here's what I see instead of here's what I want to see. It's like, let me just retract that and let me just look at her.
Exactly. And I'm so grateful for that experience because I think that's hard for parents and it's hard for children. And most kids quit with it when they have that pressure because they don't know what to do about it. And you not only turned it around and used it for your benefit, you really maximized all of like you embraced it. And it wasn't easy for you to do those things, but you took it and ran with it. And it's brought you in a parallel respect with your parents, probably like never before.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, now let me think. Now I just got to look at my notes here. Okay. Um, okay. Now you are a freshman in college,
Yeah.
and I have probably never, I mean, I've experienced the universe testing athletes before, but the universe, call it whatever you want, was testing you. Like, are you sure you're ready for this? I don't know if you're ready for this. We're going to throw this at you. Are you sure you're ready? There's like when people kind of are not settling anymore for anything other than what they want and what they want to do and being their best, the universe pushes back and it pushed back really hard on you. Can you just describe what happened when like your experience from when you got to college?
So when I first got there, it was kind of a struggle. We had this like running test and I kept on failing and I'm like, well, why do I keep failing? Like I know I can do this, like I know I'm capable of doing this.
That's right.
And it was like right as I got to the peak, I got hurt and I was like, okay, I was like, this is a setback and it like really upset me and like I was calling my dad and he was like telling me, he's like, well, you were like emotionless when you called me and I'm like, because I was in shock. Like I had surgery on this knee like almost a year and a half ago, and it's re-hurt again. And I'm like, and I don't understand why it's happening. And he's like, well, you need to get it together, like just push through it. And I'm like, I can't push through it, like I can't walk. And then talking to you, like really just having the conversation about like relying on what's hurt and like pushing through it because I saw my knee as like baggage of like leaving the baggage to the side, like I don't need this luggage around, like I can carry it with me and still be fine. And so once I got cleared from that, it was I was on a really good streak of like 2 weeks of practicing, and then I strained my thumb, and which I've never done in my life, which was crazy. And then I was out for even longer, and I was just like,
And what's your position on the
I'm a,
volleyball court?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a hero. So
you
I
kind of need your thumbs.
Yeah, I need my thumbs. So I get all kinds of crazy balls coming at me, and it's the one time I made a wrong move. I was like, man, I'm like, really? So I was out for even longer, and then I came back, and I was on a high for about 3.5 weeks, and then I got super sick, and it took me out for about 2.5 months, and I couldn't finish the season. And it really took a toll on me, and I was just laying in bed one day and I'm like, why is this happening? Like there's questioning, and I was praying every day and I'm like, I don't understand why this is happening, like why is this my plan? And then I realized I'm like, this is my plan because maybe I'm not ready for this just yet. There's greater things coming in the future, which my parents didn't understand because they're like, well, this shouldn't have been happening, like all of this like reasonings. And I'm like, there's no reasoning. I'm like, this needed to happen. Like it opened up my eyes of like, this is what's going to happen next season, like healthy wise, like pushing through, getting stronger. And then I got cleared from that. And then now it's like I've completely changed my mindset of like why this happens. Oh, it's because of this reason. Like it's a good reason because it's gonna push me to be stronger mentally and physically because it was a very, very long recovery from that. I've struggled a lot mentally during that time of like being isolated from the team because I was too sick, being left out, just like being in my own space for too long. And then now it's like I have all of these friends around me, I have life like forming around me, like it just completely changed.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Madison. You know, you really had nobody would have said to you if you decided to quit, nobody would have said why. You know,
Yeah.
you had every reason in the book to not do this and to just move forward without volleyball, without whatever. And and but you shifted that mentality into leaning into all of it. And that's where you took your power back from the injuries. It doesn't mean that injuries don't happen. It just means that you can lean into your body to take care of your body, to manage it, to do what you need to do through this process. And then that leads me to my next thing that you've taught me, because it's not easy to be mentally strong,
Yeah.
right? It's not easy to be mentally strong. You are courageous, daring, humble, and a fighter. Like you have come through this in a way that because there's a balance with being mentally strong, because you could be mentally strong and then be annoyed when people aren't, and you're not. You're like the leader on of the court in a humble way, because you can teach people how to be mentally strong by being mentally strong, but it takes ownership and it takes accountability, and that's not easy for people to be accountable and take ownership of everything that goes on in their life. And that's what you have done, which allows you to then be completely in control. It's so much easier and less stressful when you're accountable and taking ownership.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like that's been such a thing, because you were basically then redshirted
Yeah.
for your freshman year, and now you have this spring. Um, so tell me, as you have come out of your freshman year, what do you feel is the maybe the most important thing that you've learned through your process that you can rely on and take with you moving forward?
Being obviously in my own body all the time, like it's come point like very tiny points when I'm playing. It's like my brain turns on and it's just rambling, and then I'm like relaxing, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I don't need that in my head right now. Like that's not who I am right now. Like my brain just needs to turn off, and like it's cool like to think about and talk about because it's like I can just turn it off and then keep playing, and it's like nothing even happened, which I mean, I really appreciate your help for that because it's really completely changed my mentality and my athletic ability like 180.
That's so good to hear. And the mentally strong part, what people don't realize, when you're mentally strong, it stretches you physically,
It does.
right? Like we don't even know your potential physically, because you're meant what happens is when people are not mentally strong, they're physically good, right? And they're trying to support that, but then it doesn't work unless we figure it out. Inside out mentality, in my mind.
Yeah.
Once you become mentally able to support your body physically, then you go into success in places where you didn't know you could be successful, right?
Mhm.
You're filling in all the gaps with what you can do physically, but it's beyond what you thought
Yeah.
because you didn't know, right? And so for me, watching you being mentally strong, being in your body, relying on your knee, being able to step into that and run with that, that's what goes beyond volleyball to me. That's what goes beyond your ability to do anything you want to do. And that's the beauty of being in your potential, because then you can take that and you've shown me, like with school, you I learned so much from you about how organized you are and how you really have a goal beyond the goal mentality with so many different things that, and you're not even thinking about it. You're just doing it that way. And that's, I didn't put 6 things on here that I learned from you, but that's a part of that too. How you've taken this in your life and ran with it, not just, and there's no pressure on it. It's not like there's an expectation on that. It's just super fun for me to watch you use this work in a way that is living your life. And I believe everybody, needs to be themselves because the world needs it. And you're like living proof of how that looks from everybody's perspective around you. And nobody can argue with that.
Yeah.
You've balanced working with the coaches, working with the team, being injured, being out, and now being a part of that and not really being a part of it because you were redshirted. You've had all kinds of experiences that people could have been like mad and annoyed and, like, poor me, you know, and I've been sick for 2.5 months and, and we had those moments. And I always tell people you have to process. I don't expect you to be excited because you can't play.
Yeah.
All of those things are valuable. um, but what would you say, what would I want to hear your thoughts? And we don't practice this. I don't tell her what I'm going to ask her, but I want to ask you, and I don't even know what I'm going to ask because that's how I work, that. I want to ask you, what would your advice be to young girls and volleyball players, in because that's your relationship with that? And then think about advice for parents. So let's start with, what would you give advice to young girls or your younger self?
Ooh, for my younger self, I would say keep pushing, like keep doing what you love because you're going to see greater things in the future. Don't give up because you never know what your potential could be if you do give up, rather than just like going 50% rather than 100% because you never know the outcome.
Mm.
And just really like focusing on what you know best rather than what other people are doing around you. Stay true to who you are because you'll lose yourself in the process if you don't.
Mm. And the universe was like, are you sure you're not going to lose yourself? Are you sure? Like, it was like the big test. And you just were like, nope, I'm going to shed that. We're going to move forward. We're going to own it. And what a blessing and what a great experience for me to watch with you. And what advice would you give to parents?
Take it easy on your kids.
I-
What your kids are going through because there were many times I was calling my mom just crying, just like I can't do this anymore, like I don't understand what's going on, and just having a shoulder to lean on and just talk to her, like just explain everything was going on, and just for parents to be like more open as what their kids say and like more understanding because I feel like parents are sometimes like transparent with their kids of like they'll get a phone, especially with athletes, like a phone call of like, well, this workout was too hard, like this is just too much, and the parents are like, well, okay, that's fine, like I know what you can do, like you don't have to think about that, like you can just do better. But it's like for parents to just be a shoulder of like just stopping and just listening to what their kids have to say and just really taking it in and thinking about, because they have more life experience than their kids do, so it's like giving them more valuable advice as they get older and just being like a shoulder for them.
yeah, I always say to parents, I know that you want the best for your athlete, and I have 4 children and I get that. But the more parents can validate what their children are experiencing without trying to change it or fix it or get involved with that, the better off the athlete is to move through the process, because at the root of every problem lies the solution. But
Mhm.
if we're like jumping in there and trying to fix it and trying to take away all the uncomfortable feelings from our children, then we're preventing them from figuring it out for themselves and we're doing them a disservice. It's hard to do that in the moment and bite your tongue and not get in there. But when people understand that, validating is such a great resource for an athlete and for uh,
Yeah.
a child, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes. Okay, so well, and like I said, I didn't know I was going to ask you this, but is there anything in your A circle this week in a negative way?
Not really compared to the past, because about like 2 years ago, I would have been like, well, all of this stuff is in the circle, but now it's like the only thing that's really in my A circle is just being like physically active as much as I can, which is important to me, and also like my schoolwork. But everything that happens on the court, that's like, if I make a mistake, I'm like, okay, that's done. Like, there's too many things coming at me. Like, I don't need to focus on this tiny, tiny little detail compared to the bigger picture.
Exactly. And my next question, my last question for you, Madison, was what's been going well for you this week?
Definitely staying in my body every single day, trying to like not think about the mistakes that I make. Like if something wrong happens or like I like miss an assignment, I'm like, okay, like I can still make that up. Like there's no reason for me to dwell on that. And just really keeping an open mind, like with my friends and my life and my parents, like just being more open to people, like check on people, because I know that sometimes people aren't checking on each other, like on the team. So it's just me just being more outgoing and like not like forcing myself, but just like, hey, like maybe I can be the light for someone today.
Well, you're leaving a legacy and you're a freshman, you
Yeah.
know? I love that. You're creating a culture. You're not arrogant. You're not outside yourself. You're not, being overly confident. You're being you, more of you. Thank you for teaching me, obviously more than 5 things that I had written down, but it's really fun to watch you live your life from a congruent perspective with no pressure, but really going after those outcomes. And obviously, I look forward to more from you as you move through your chapters in your life. But I'm really grateful. And I'm so happy that you decided to do this with me. Next time, we're going to bring your parents on with us.
Yes.
We're going to have to get your parents on because they have a they have a great I just, I was like, when I met your dad, when I saw not saw him, I don't know what he looks like, but when I met with them, I was like, oh my gosh, how did she get through this? And then, he learned how to balance a lot of that and still have those high expectations of you, which is amazing. And so I'm really proud of you. Thanks
Thank
for being
you.
here, Madison. I can't wait for you to come back and we'll do this again soon, okay?